This is in response to Dr. Paul Krugman's article in the New York Times on Monday, June 22nd, 2015, Slavery's Long Shadow. Just think of that one word, long shadow. 2 words, long being long. So it's been going on for a long time, and Dr. Krugman absolutely, I'm going to start out by just saying he hits it on the head. It's a home run. It's a perfect game. It's a 5-touchdown game, passing game, into what is really going on in the United States in terms of our treatment of our fellow citizens who are black, and our continued treatment of our fellow citizens who are brown, let's just say, because it all has its roots in slavery. And he points out very aptly that what we see right now, the raw racism of the 1950s and the 1960s is gone. The raw racism of the 1850s, is gone. But there is still a tremendous amount of racial hatred that is very potent in the United States, and it affects everything in the United States in terms of who we are as a nation and how we deal with these types of things. Because the United States is very unique in its treatment of the less fortunate and its willingness to inflict pain upon them. And I'm going to just use the term black in terms of that. It is still very, very unique in that term. Now, a lot's gone on, a lot has happened. Now, Dr. Krugman points out a couple of academic studies that reinforce this view of his. And one of them was a gentleman by the name of Bartels, in terms of what's going on, is that the right-wing scheme machine, the right-wing machine that daily has to come up with some type of outrage against the progressives has taken quite a hold, especially in terms of the cultural issues. And this Bartels guy referred to a book which was written by Thomas Frank, which was What's the Matter with Kansas, whereby people who at one time were Democrats, because remember that the South was mostly Democratic until the Civil Rights Laws of 1964, I believe, and then slowly became Republican to the point that helped Reagan get his ascendancy to the Republican, to win the Republican, to win the presidency in 1980, to the point now that about 85% of all Southern white people or more vote Republican, whereas before it was the complete opposite. But the idea is that what we're seeing in the South is that the right-wing scheme machine, the right-wing outrage machine has gotten to the point in terms of cultural issues that it allows white people, and has allowed, not allowed, but convinced white people to vote against their economic best interests. So if you're making $20,000 a year and you're outraged about abortion, then vote for a Republican who will make sure he'll keep you at $20,000 a year. And this thing about that voting against their own best economic interest is basically confined to the South. Confined to the South. And the strategy is that they do that consistently. Now, what we find now, if things changed, of course things have changed quite a bit. So that in the South, in the early 80s, as many as 50% of white people were against interracial marriage. Now we have over 60% of all people who are for gay marriage. So things have changed quite a bit. But that in terms of voting against your own economic best interest, that still is very, very prevalent of those in the South. So, and where else has that gone on? That has gone on with the Affordable Care Act, whereby 80% of the population who have refused the help of the Affordable Care Act are southern states, which means that those were states that supported slavery 150 years ago. So again, The Republicans have taken a stranglehold. They're hurting those that really need the help the most. They're convincing these people to vote against their economic self-interest. And remember, these are the states in the South that are really, really big on gun control. Yes, we have to have our Second Amendment rights. They're really, really bad on minimum wage, whereas some of the most poverty-stricken areas in the country are in the South. They are against unions. Why? Because it would help the average working person, and we can't have that. It would also would help black people, and they can't have that either. They're also for low taxes. Why? Because the state doesn't want to invest in anything. Remember, states like Alabama that has the Stennis, I believe, NASA lab, and Mississippi, which has a number of shipbuilding areas in there, were brought about by the Republicans, you know, who needed to get some of that Yankee money so that they could, you know, keep their people employed down there because they're very, very poor. But this is what has gone on. Is that number one, the South has traditionally gone against its economic self-interest, that there is still a tremendous amount of potent racism in the South. Now remember, as I like to say about this guy Dylan, is that there are at least 19 well-known hate groups in South Carolina. And of course, the number of hate groups increased in the United States after Obama got elected. I think it's gone down a little bit right now. And that there are very, very many anti-government, white supremacist hate groups in the United States. And that this guy Dylan took his manifesto, I don't know if it was word for word, but predominantly from, Southern Poverty Law Center, what they would call it, registered, not registered, but, you know, they titled them a hate group. And that the person who owns and who runs that hate group has invested money in Ted Cruz, in Rand Paul, I think Rick Santorum. I don't know who's going to give the money back or not. But as you can see, this thing goes full circle. You know, and then when it comes to the Affordable Care Act, the states that it's hurting the most are the southern states, the ones that supported slavery, the ones that are against the minimum wage, the ones that are for lower taxes, the ones that are against against any form of gun control, and the ones that are against unions. So, what I see this, you know, it's the dumbing down of America by going down to the level of what's going on in these states. We should be raising these southern states up to their equivalent in the north, with unions, with higher minimum wage, with more taxes so that we can invest in the schools. You see, because investing in the schools means investing in black people, and you can't have that. So I want to applaud Dr. Krugman for bringing this up, because this is, it's not only the perception, it's the reality of what's going on. Is the South is taking the whole country down by bringing all of these things in and being adamant that this is the way it should be, when it really needs to change. We need to move on. We need to be a part of the greater world and not be unique in terms of our harsh treatment of our minorities and our willingness to inflict an exuberant amount of pain on them.